The Courtesan Project, as the name suggests, is about women. It is now 9 years of my work, almost 10. And I don't know where to begin, so I have in my mind, cataloged the ideas into 4 different areas which I would cover while talking to you. It's a vast project, it covers a lot of things, but we shall go through one by one. One of the aspects is why a courtesan project and why do we need to know about certain women when apparently our lives are running very fine and we don't need to know about them. That is because if you Google today, you would find, even if you Google in Bombay, Delhi, or even Bangalore, you would find probably at least 500 or 1,000 ghazal artists listed, singing ghazals. But do we know that, say 200 years back, who were the people who were singing ghazals? Try and Google, you would barely find a single 2 or 3 names that will come up. And we're not going very far. We are going only 100 years back, or maybe pre-independence, a little before that. We don't find the names of women performers. Whereas we do find elaborately written records of men performers. So where does this whole thing come that we can document the men, but we can't document the women? So somewhere there is a lens of gender by which we have seen the art forms, which is highly erroneous because art cannot be seen with a gender. We should first see whether the artist is singing a good ghazal, performing good kathak, performing good thumri, and then see whether it's a man performing or a woman performing. How can you see whether the woman, with the gender of the performer, and then go back and say whether that's good or bad? I'm a classical dancer by profession, dancing for 20 years. And to be very frank, I come from a very privileged section of a society, Brahmin, fair-looking, English-speaking. You know, these are big points that are considered big points when you judge a person, even in today's time. So I had all this privilege behind me, and I did not understand what could be the position of certain other women performers. It's only when I met a lady called Zarina Begum, who was not exactly a wife because she was born right in the year of independence, but came from a similar tradition. And I met her, she was on a pension scheme from my foundation, and I spoke to her. I loved her style of singing. And when I asked her she was already 75 when I met her. And I asked her, what would you like to, 70, I think. And I said, what can I do for you? She said, ek bar Banarsi sari pehen kar stage par gana hai. I want to sing once on stage in a Banarsi sari. And I felt that this was a reasonable request of a singer. I came to Delhi. I live in Delhi. So I came to Delhi and I started asking for sponsorships. Now there came the revelation. Because there were people ready to sponsor my shows, but were not ready to sponsor Zarina Begum because she was a tawayaf. And that got me into thinking that what is this that creates such a huge divide? Why do we not question that? The more I delved into it, the more appalled I was as to what you and I have done to a section of women performers, labeled them as prostitutes very comfortably because they were not there to fight it back, and never questioned that what did they contribute to the art? Who kept Kathak alive for 200 years, if not 400? Let's not go 400, let's only talk 200 years. Who kept Kathak alive? Who kept Thumri alive? Who kept Ghazal alive? It was these. And I'm talking about North India. I'm not going into South India, into the Devdasi tradition, because that has not been my domain of work. So there's a section of women who have contributed so much, but do you know any name? I, as a Kathak student, was never taught the biographies of these women performers. We were made to learn biographies of the ustads, which were male performers. Whether they were, lineage of third generation, fourth generation, we were made to learn everything. But nowhere was a mention of a woman performer as equivalent to a ustad. So that became a point of contention. I felt, where did these women disappear in the documentation? And when I researched, I actually found, for example, I'm giving you an example that, we all know that Biju Maharaj is a great Kathak guru of Kathak. And his family was the court dancer and even the teacher of Wajid Ali Shah. So he was a court dancer. Now, similarly, Malka Jan was also a court dancer in the court of Wajid Ali Shah. But nowhere in the documentation of history of Kathak do we ever find the name of Malka Jan. We find the name of every single guru who was a male. So somewhere even the same documentation did not get these. Now, when we get down to this, that, what was it? It was in our mind an aspect that leads to the other part is, what were these women? They were performers. They earned on their own. They were largely probably not married. Some of them were, but it was a choice. What made our society, which is largely a patriarchal society, to be so threatened by these women that you wanted to discard them into a section which is more comfortable to say they are loose character women because they are alone, they are unmarried? And then subsequently, over the years, Bollywood fed us exactly that. They fed us that these were women who were largely bought and sold. They were used for sex. Yes, they sang and danced. That was a side thing. And they needed, for their redemption, they needed to be married to a man to be socially acceptable. So the whole patriarchy is complete. This independent woman who largely, if you go the British records, the Britishers have said that the Tawayafs were the highest taxpayers. And in my research, I found that they kept two books. One was the actual money they earned, and there was a small black book in which they kept the unaccounted money. So from their accounted money, the Britishers found that they were the highest taxpayers. So imagine the unaccounted one. So these were women who knew their numbers well. They were financially sound. They were performers. They lived on their own. They had a largely matriarchal system in their way of living. And now the patriarchy, kind of brings them back into a section where the woman has to be redeemed by being married to a man. And you would be appalled to know that post-independence, this was continued. It is said that All India Radio even actually had two doors. One was for the entry of the ustads, and one back door was for the entry of the Baijis and the Tawayafs. So my question came that why did they, for God's sake, invite the Baijis and the Tawayafs if they were so lowly creatures? Saleability, because it was their songs that were heard. People wanted to hear them. So the commercials came in. So the women were needed for commercial viability. Somewhere in this process, we did not see the women as accomplished women. Today, you probably haven't seen a Tawayaf. I did not. But we all have a fair idea as to what a Tawayaf is. She wears an outfit, which is a cleavage showing outfit, which is a tight churidar, which will show her body, ample bosom. The dance that she would do would be a kind of a, bosom heaving, hip moving dance. Everybody has a fair idea of this is what a tawaf is. My research proved everything wrong. The tawafs, the kind of outfits that they wore, showed nothing except their face, their wrists, and their feet. They were covered from head to toe. Today we have item numbers. We have film stars wearing skimpy outfits coming on stage and performing. And you and I are happy watching it. We say it is her right to express the way she wants to. What is stopping you from giving that same lens to the tawafs of yesteryears who wore a Banarsi sari, covered their head, sat and sang ghazals and tumri? Wasn't it their right to express the way they wanted? They did. They performed. They were performers. So all this has been part of our history, which unfortunately, because we did not assert itself as a documentation, because again, documentation was by patriarchy. Na? If I'm a dancer and I've come on stage and I'm performing to a beautiful ghazal, if there's a audience of men who are sitting and documenting, they might end up saying, oh, you know, she had beautiful eyes, the way she moved, she took me into a dreamland. You know, she was like a dream, she was waif-like. But these are the documentations that we get. Did they mention that she spent 12 years learning the dance form? She might have got blisters on her feet while learning the dance. She practiced 8 hours a day for 12 years to be able to sing the rag perfectly. Where was all that? Because women were not documenting. So if the woman is not documenting, you don't know her side of the story. The famous thing that till the lion learns to ride, it's always the story of the hunter. And that's what we have. So we have a documentation, which is largely driven by patriarchy, what suited them, what was written. They did not write. And the few of the tawafs, which is largely one or two, who have written, and I during the research read one of her letters from Hyderabad. She actually wrote that she doesn't want to be married. And she was writing a letter to her mother saying that please don't ask me to get married because I do not wish to be married. I'm an independent woman. I earn my own, and I run my own house. Why do I need a man? I found it incredible that this woman in 16th century is writing that. And then the next line that she writes is that I do not wish to be part of a harem. I'm an independent earning woman. Now see the position, because that is something that is always in the minds of people, is the sexuality of a tawaf. If you see the position and you see the society which we are talking about 200 years back, every king, whether Hindu or Muslim, let's not get into the religious identities, because whether Hindu or Muslim, they all had multiple wives. So they had a harem of, if not 100, 30, 40, 200, 500, legendary. If they liked a woman, okay, they would get married to her. They would have a social sanction to have sex with that woman. She became the wife. She became part of the harem. Now, isn't that, if you see from the view of a woman's sexuality, isn't that purely for a physical relationship that marriage has happened? Now look at the tawaf. So in a court where there would be, the king would have probably 200 or 50 or 100, whatever number, wives, there would be one tawaf in that court who would be a performer for 20 years, 25 years. Respect that woman because she had art. She sustained that position in her court because she was well-read, she was educated, she knew her music, she knew her dance, she knew the art of conversation. We don't even realize that these were things which were not available to each woman in those times. And for these women to accomplish that, it was a tremendous effort. So these are stories that, we tell through the Courtesan Project. We relive their songs. We've forgotten their songs. Like one of my project is called Begums and Baitis of Bollywood. What does that talk about? You and I have watched films. We have iconic songs in Bollywood. Mohe Panghat pe Nandlal Chhed Gayo Re. Everyone says, oh my God, beautiful song, Madhubala. But do we know that that's a song of the Tawayafs? I have a recording of Indubala, a student of Gohar Jan, singing that. So that predates the film Mughal-e-Azam. So somewhere, these iconic songs of the Tawayafs are alive till today between you and we enjoy them. But we do not know whose songs these are. So it's very important to know who these women were, what art they brought to life. They were the film stars of their time. People can aspire to, be photographed with a Madhuri Dixit, but not necessarily that they could, be with Madhuri Dixit. And it was the same that the Tawayafs had. People only aspired, they only heard stories as to how that particular Tawayaf looked like or how she performed. They couldn't actually go and see. The times were different. Even if today if you like a certain music, you can live stream it, web stream it, get it on your phone, get it on your computer. It's very easy. But try seeing those times where if you wanted to hear music, you wanted to see dance, you had to have a live performer performing it for you. There was no other option. So they were the performers who kept these arts alive as oral traditions. Just the fact that you don't know about them or I don't know about them doesn't make their contribution to art any less. That's your ignorance. So somewhere these things are, and because they are oral narratives, it's very difficult to get the stories out. The third thing that we've done is we've created this whole social stigma around the Tawayafs. That's the other woman, that's the bad woman. I am good because I'm married. She's not good because she's unmarried. And trust me, this exists even today. We are very happy to say if a man climbs a corporate ladder, I'm just giving an example, we say, oh my God, he worked his ass off. If a woman climbs a corporate ladder, she's at it. Because, we know how she reached there. So where we are living in this society, we use the same lens for these women performers. We tried to judge them by virtue of them being independent, sexually independent women also. What they did in their personal lives could be a matter of gossip, but cannot be a matter of judgment of their art. For you and me to judge that, their art was this. Today, if I may say, like I said, that all the film songs, most of the film songs that started were from the Tawayaf traditions because they were the only performers who came to Hindi cinema from the Kotha tradition and the salons and the Parsi theatre and moved on to Hindi cinema. So they were the ones who were singing and dancing for cinema. And they became the powerhouse of talent for that time. So what have we done basically? We've taken their art. Today you go to any wedding, you'll find everybody dressed in an anarkali with a nice chapka on the side, with a choda pajama, with a dupatta put on the side. That was what the Tawayafs wore. They were fashionistas of their time. So you've taken their art, their music, you've taken their attire with detailing. But you've snatched everything out of that woman and then said, she's a loose character woman. I don't want to acknowledge her. And that we have done repeatedly over years with their music, with their dance, with their repertoire, with their, with their way of attire, everything. We've done that. And if I may go and extend it to down south, that, even to the extent that, a small part, if I may say, since my research is not largely on the Devdasi tradition, but what we call today Bharatnatyam was the art form that the Devdasis performed. I'm strongly, I won't say against, but strongly opinionated, if I may say, on the fact that who on earth says that, a certain character who came in and cleaned the dance of the Devdasis and called it Bharatnatyam, and we put her on altar today and we say, oh my God, she did legendary work. What legendary work did they do? They snatched the art out of the Devdasis, said that you are the bad women. But your art is good, so we will take your art. Now it becomes a Brahminical art, and now it is nice and pious. You are still bad, you should perish. This is exactly what we did. It was your judgment and my judgment included. I looked at it with the same lens till I stumbled on this and till I worked on it. And trust me, even today, I'm giving you all these examples and I'm leading you with this so that you start questioning these things, that why did you think like this? You love the song Hamri Atariya Ajare Savarya, Madhuri Dixit dancing to it. Oh my God, how beautiful. It's a traditional song. Sounds good. It's a Tawaf song, which used to be sung in the kothas. You like that music. Acknowledge the woman. You cannot keep doing this over and over through generations without a question. Now, when we, see this whole aspect about why is it necessary for us to assert the women in these spaces? Because today, the subsequent generations of the male performers who were in the court of the Nawabs or the Rajas, whoever, say with a lot of sense of pride that we are the fifth generation from the Gwalior Maharaja, Bhopal Maharaja, Wajid Ali Shah. We say that with a sense of pride, but only the families of the male performers. Cut to the families of the female performers, they live with a sense of shame. They do not even want to disclose that their grandmothers or mothers or great-grandmothers were tawayafs or baijis or had anything to do with the courts. And this is what we are fighting for, that they have to be given their right place in the documentation history. We can't undo what we did to them. We became the anglicized Britishers, or we should say the anglicized Indians, post-independence. And we started looking at everything of our history with the eyes of the English. So we started thinking, oh, these are Nautch girls. We are not supposed to touch them. We are much beyond that. Was that right for us to do? At least now we can look back and, if I may use the Urdu word, उनको उनका वजूद दे दें, उनको उनकी हिस्ट्री में जगह दे दें. At least that much we can do, you and I together. And that's what this project is working on. Yeah. Okay, so I've been asked that if I want to take questions. So there's 3 minutes. So whatever I can, kind of take in 3 minutes. I speak a lot, so I could go on, but let's cut it short here and take questions.
Thank you for your lovely talk, ma'am. As a Bharatanatyam dancer working on the Devdasi tradition, I find a lot of solidarity in what you're saying. Just a quick question about privilege, because you had acknowledged your own privilege in approaching this project. How do you approach your repertoire and performance with the awareness that you are dancing to music which has been essentially stolen over the years by society? And how do you negotiate your own performance of that music and that dance?
Simply by asserting the fact that every time that I perform to that music, and I largely perform to the songs of the Tawayafs and the courtesans, I give the credit. I say that this is a song which was sung by Indu Bala or Gohar Jan or Begum Akhtar or Rasulan Bai. I exactly give the name, I give the brief about that woman, and I perform that song. The songs have to live on. We cannot let them die. But the acknowledgement has to come. It is not yours, it is not mine. It belonged to somebody. Let's give that credit to that woman and let people know that name. They should know that name. So that is where it comes in. And wonderful that you're doing on Devdasi tradition. It's incredible. And a lot of work needs to be done. The women need to find their space in history. Any more questions?
Yes, I have a question. Thank you for your interesting talk. I just wanted to know what happened with the dancer you mentioned in the beginning of your talk. Were you able to raise enough funds for her performance?
We did it on our own. We did a show which we titled as Last Song of Awadh. IGNCA is a body in Delhi which partnered with us as a venue partner. So that was venue was sorted out, and she performed. We had the culture minister. We had the culture minister come in as chief guest, who came for 5 minutes and stayed on for 1 hour. The woman was paralyzed waist down, Zarina Begum, and she didn't want to be seen being carried on stage. So we shut down the lights, we brought her on stage, she sat down, and after that we put on the lights so that she sits in her Banarsi sari. And I have deep respect for the media in Delhi because of that concert. 32 publications covered her. And when she saw those stories, she cried so much. And she said, if I may use Hindi, she said, "Log humse abhi bhi mohabbat karte hain." So for me, that was the turning point, and I realized that these women, the only thing they wanted in life was their art. And we are denying them that by virtue of talking about their sexuality, which is not needed. Thank you. So I close it here, and follow us on the Courtesan Project. And if you have any stories that you know of, oral narratives, please share with me. We need a lot of work to be done on these narratives. Thank you so much.